All right, everybody, welcome to BO Boys for Monday, July 15th. Fuck it, it's a raw feed. We're doing it live. I'm Clayton.
Yeah, I'm Pat. So Clayton, we're coming to you just a little late this week. We usually try and get these out on Sunday night, Monday morning. Of course, a little later. Busy weekend, things going on. Had a hard time finding Clayton this weekend. I don't know where you were, but now you're here, so that's great. So there you go. So I don't know. I don't know where it was you were. You were unreachable on Saturday night, early Sunday. I couldn't reach you, but now you've turned up, so that's great. So I'm glad you're
saw
here.
this coming.
Yeah, you
from
did.
a mile away.
Oh, of course. Well, some
Through
people
the
say they
field
saw
of
you
cows.
coming from a mile away. That was some reports we heard. Yeah.
How dare you? How dare you?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, to disparage my character in such a way on broadcast, and drive time radio.
Yes.
With our millions of listeners.
Yeah.
You're just going to slander me.
Listen, I didn't say anything. All I said is that I don't know. You seem to be indisposed on Saturday afternoon, Saturday night, and Sunday, and I couldn't find you. And now here we are. I just want to explain why we're just a little late with our weekend recap episode. I'm not saying what you were up to. I don't know. Nobody knows. There's some witnesses that think they know, but I don't know.
You're alluding to malfeasance.
Okay.
And I was going to use a word that you're doing to my character, but I'm not going to use that word because I don't think it's an appropriate word to use right now. You are trying to damage my character, and I don't appreciate it. And I don't think the listeners appreciate it either.
Listen, the listeners are going to come to their own conclusions. That's and that's fine.
Frankly,
and that's what they should do. And that's
frankly, there's things you just don't joke about.
So we had an incredible weekend this weekend. I got to say, this weekend had one of the most shocking things that I think we have seen all year in this country.
Mm-hmm.
And people were just like, could not believe it. People were texting on Saturday, do you believe what just happened?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we're talking about the opening weekend of Longlegs. So, Clayton, could you give us a plow for the box office weekend of Friday, July 12th? Of course, a weekend that will live forever, having one of the most shocking events in American history. So if you could get to that.
Number one, Despicable Me 4 made $43.5 million, down 42%. It added 21 theaters. It's at $210 million in its second weekend of release. Number two, Longlegs made $22.4 million in only 2,510 theaters, mind you, in its first weekend of release. Number two, Inside Out 2 made $19.9 million, down 34%. It added 55 theaters. It's at $571.8 million in its fifth weekend of release. Number four, Quiet Place, day one, made $11.3 million, down 45%. It hemorrhaged theaters, losing 310 theaters. It's at $115.7 million in its third weekend. And number five, a newbie, Fly Me to the Moon, made $9.4 million in its first weekend of release. Wah, wah. Now, we got to get to the shocking thing that happened this weekend. Obviously,
it's
on everybody's tongue.
Yeah.
We were a buzz, and frankly, they wanted us to be a buzz. But I must pat myself on the shoulder to say, Fly Me to the Moon, tanking. Nobody wanted to see this movie. I said it. Now it's true.
Yeah, I'll admit it. Last episode on the weekend preview, you went low on this movie. And here's how I'll put it. Clayton, you shot your shot.
Oh, goodness.
You shot your shot, and you didn't miss. You didn't miss. Fly Me to the Moon did underperform according to your predictions. So, I mean, sharpshooter Clayton, you nailed it with that prediction. So this $9 million, I mean, I did think this would get to 11 or so. just based on the fame of the stars here, but it really came down to it's an Apple movie, and Apple does not promote their theatrical release as well. They just don't feel like real theatrical releases. There's something about it. It's an uncanny valley when
Mhm.
it came to a movie like this. And I wouldn't say that it wasn't true for Killers of the Flower Moon. That did feel like a real movie, real stars, real theatrical release, but this one just felt like some kind of accident that this was in movie theaters.
Yeah.
And the audience picked up on that.
Like it somehow got released and they just couldn't control it and they had to just go with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, I think that I think in the Deadline article, they mentioned the movie I mentioned, Down with Love. This is a
Mhm.
down with love situation. Nobody wants this kitschy 60s BS. Doesn't
No.
matter who it is. And the thing is, Scarlett Johansson, Channing Tatum, they're so of the moment stars, especially Channing Tatum. Channing Tatum is a very hard person to put in any sort of period piece unless it's one of those ones that is trying to be like a little bit tongue in cheek and a little bit like, look at this guy that is definitely from the 2000s in
Okay.
this 60s movie. He just doesn't fit into a 60s milieu. And
Okay.
I also think that nobody wants that era. Nobody wants that decade, at least that part of the decade. Like I said earlier, just listen to the last week's episode and you'll hear what I had to say about that. But I was proven correct.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you nailed it. Yeah, I get why stars keep wanting to do that because they get to do that voice. I guess they
Mm-hmm.
get to do the fast talking, and an actress like Scarlett Johansson gets to wear the cool 60s clothes and have that hairdo, and you walk around. It's the age of, I guess, like women getting into the workplace, and there's like a something to that kind of character that they all want to play, but no one ever wants to see that era.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got to be something where this has to be going forward a director and a star who have like the blankest of blank checks to be able to do a movie set in that type of 60s. I don't know who would be able to pull it off at this point.
Mm, gosh, gosh. No, Greta,
Cameron, Greta, yeah, Greta, James Cameron,
maybe.
Nolan, I guess. They're the only ones who, if they say we want to do a kitschy 60s rom-com movie, they're the only ones who you could do it for a real budget. Obviously, an indie movie you could do whatever, but yeah, it's got to be someone at that level. Catch Me If You Can. Is that set in this same era? Is that the
Yeah, but
50s, 60s? Yeah.
yeah, it is that same era. But the difference is that I mean,
And
I
that
guess
thing you do.
yeah, but
You
that
got
was
to
not
be
a
Tom
hit.
Hanks. It wasn't a
That was
hit,
not a
but it's
hit.
beloved. It's beloved. I think it's like Hanks
But people
is
didn't
allowed
go.
to do
People didn't
these.
go.
People didn't go, and that was in his hottest era. Even Hanks in, the hottest era maybe a movie star has ever had
He
couldn't
just went
make
to
a giant
Oscars.
hit out of that. Just won 2 Oscars,
But Catch Me If You
blockbuster after
Can,
blockbuster.
that might be the exception exception to the rule because,
Yeah,
but again, Hanks, Leo,
right.
Spielberg.
Walken, yeah.
Uh, uh, this was Tatum. Who's the director? Orlandi. What is his name?
Greg Berlanti. It was the CW
Orlandi.
TV show guy. Yeah,
Yeah. Not equivalent. That's not
not
equal.
equivalent
I mean,
Spielberg and Leo.
am
Yeah.
I being rude by saying he's not as good as Spielberg is?
Listen,
Is
you
that
know
rude of
what?
me? Am I
That
being
that's
rude?
what people come to the show here for, are those kind of brutal takes. And yes, I think it's rude to say Greg Berlanti isn't as good as Steven Spielberg, but you're the one to say it. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why we have those billboards along the highway with you and just fire coming out of your mouth because
Mm-hmm.
of just how
Mm-hmm.
hot the things you say are. So does this hurt either of the stars.
No,
No.
this movie just really doesn't even blip on the radar enough to hurt people. It's sometimes a movie does so poorly that it doesn't harm anybody other than, I
Hmm.
mean, it's going to harm the gentleman who directed it because good luck getting a budget for anything you do. I mean, listen, TV's waiting for you, my friend. But
Hmm. Well,
this is not
streaming
going to
at this
hurt.
point.
Yeah, this isn't going to hurt either of the stars. I mean, people are still going to see Blink twice because they like Channing Tatum. They're
Yep.
still going to see whatever Scarlett Johansson does next. This does not hurt them at all. Of course, Woody Harrelson is in this movie, one of the all-time value adds. The
Hmm.
guy is going to just be in another franchise down the road, not a
Hmm.
blip on his radar. The only person that gets hurt is the person who got the blank check to make this movie and now is like, yeah, we're not giving
Yeah.
this guy money.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we on this show, we definitely have a soft spot for Channing Tatum because of us, especially that 1-2 punch he had coming out of the pandemic with Dog and The Lost City, and how
Mm-hmm.
he clearly is someone that people go to the movies to see.
Yes.
Not saying at the level of a Leo or 1990s movie stars, but he has fans who come out because he's in something. They didn't really come out for this movie, but I do think Blink Twice, and we'll get to it based on how well Longlegs did this weekend. Blink Twice is one of those movies that feels like it could break out, and I think if that happens, that's the only thing that people care about as far as Channing Tatum is what
Mm-hmm.
Blink Twice does.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's got a chance within another month or so to totally wipe people's memories of Fly Me to the Moon.
Yes. Um, let's get to Longlegs
Let's do
because
it.
I, you went high on this,
Yep.
but not as high as it ended up, which I don't
Mm-mm.
think anybody went as high as it ended up. I was sort of moderate about this just because, again, not everybody's making this big hullabaloo about horror's dead, blah blah blah. All it takes is one of these movies to break out for people to be like, horror's back. Horror never goes away. It
Mm-hmm.
ebbs and
Mm-hmm.
flows, and this is just a very big like breakout, and we're going to see more of these in the future coming up. There's some really highly anticipated horror movies coming down the pike. We just had a run of like not as impressive, and people weren't going out as much to see them, but this movie doing what it did is amazing, and one of the reasons why it's amazing is because it's neon. This isn't a
Mm.
Blumhouse. This isn't an A24. This isn't a Sony. This isn't a big company putting this out. This is a record for neon. I mean,
Yeah.
this thing is doing numbers that a neon movie just shouldn't be able to do.
Yeah. It's
And they,
doing numbers that, Neon always feels like the little brother in both box office and coolness to
mhm.
A24. This movie, this Long Legs opening weekend, just wiped the floor with anything A24 has ever done for an opening weekend. I mean, I guess Uncut Gems, opened, I think, at a 5-day weekend back when it opened December of 2019, and obviously Adam Sandler. So in the 5-day, I think Uncut Gems for A24 opens around what this did. But honestly, none of the A24 horror or faux horror has ever opened like this. Midsommar, I think, did what, 15 million? They've never had anything like what Neon was able to do with Long Legs. And I will say, you said no one predicted this high. Um, Brett of the New Flesh, I was texting with him on, I think, Thursday, and he did text to me, and wasn't on the show, so maybe listeners here won't believe it. They cry conspiracy theory, whatever. But he did text me 20 million plus opening weekend for
Love
Long
it.
Legs. So Brett
I
of the
mean,
New
he's an
Flesh
expert.
nailed it. Yeah.
Yeah, he's an expert, and there's no reason to lie about his expertise. He has made predictions that haven't come through, like we all
Mm-hmm.
have, but he's got his finger on the pulse of the gore hounds, and that pulse was racing like that actress's heart when she saw Nicolas Cage. Speaking of which, I just really want to dip into, because we're going to talk about demos, but let's look at these exits really quick, because 49% of the moviegoers who saw this movie said they saw it because it was a horror movie.
Okay.
We love horror. We are horror hounds, is what they said. 39% because it looked fun. Very key element in movies that people forget about, especially when they make movies. Does it look fun? Here's what's really impressive. 26% for Nicolas Cage.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing? Nicolas Cage, after having, like we've been talking about, again, beloved, internet icon, great actor when he wants to be, has had some critically acclaimed performances in the last couple of years. Not a lot of box office hits, though. But people are willing to go see a movie if they think Nicolas Cage is going to be awesome in it. I mean, he is a Teflon star when it comes to this, because if anybody else, I mean, Travolta, I mean, who knows? Will Travolta have another comeback? Anything is possible with Travolta. But other actors have not gotten this much leeway the way Nicolas Cage has. It's so amazing to me.
Yeah. The fact that people were going to see this because of Nicolas Cage is so it's so interesting, because Nicolas Cage is not really in the promotion of this movie. The whole promotion centers around the absence of Nicolas Cage. And, they're not that they're trying to hide that he's in it, but that they're teasing, what is he going to look like when he shows up? What is he going to sound like? And that's such a maybe great way of using Nicolas Cage these days, because it does feel like every movie he's in, whether he's good in it, whether he's bad in it, whether he's whatever, it's always, look at how bizarre Nicolas Cage is in this trailer. He's bizarre as Dracula. He's bizarre as the guy in Pig. He's bizarre as the Mandy. He's bizarre as himself in The Unbearable Weight of whatever that stupid title was. Should have been called Cage Island. Every trailer for a Nicolas Cage movie is, look at this over the top, and again, often great, but over the top way he's playing it. And Longlegs, the whole thing was, we're not going to show you what he's doing. You're going to assume that it's amazing and it's bizarre, but we're not going to give any of it away in the trailer. You've got to come to see what Nicolas Cage looks and sounds like in this movie. I don't know if you could repeat that over and over again. I don't know if every Nicolas Cage movie could tease, we're not going to show you what he's doing in this. But the fact that this movie was able to do it after years of all these Nicolas Cage movies with just him having like a bug out, screaming face on every poster and every thumbnail, they were the ones that were able to make money by saying, we're not going to show you what he's doing in this movie. And again, you can't replicate that again, but it's such a great hook after basically like a 30-year buildup of Nicolas Cage being this over the top, trapeze artist actor, and it's all built up to a movie where we're not going to show you what he's doing. You've got to pay to see it.
I mean, Neon, it's just so they did such a great job. They did such an amazing job with this movie, promoting it and getting people excited and keeping information from people in a way that a lot of movies don't, because they're too afraid to. They're too afraid to not show you every single beat of a movie, every single scary part, every single time that, and this is not to shade Blumhouse, because they do an incredible job marketing, but every single time Megan dances, like if they would have not shown the Megan dance in the, there's no way they wouldn't show the Megan dance.
You got to show the Megan dance. Yeah.
And it's a different situation. You have to, but you know what I mean?
But in this movie, in Longlegs, maybe Nicolas Cage does the Megan dance. And I don't
Who
know, you don't
knows?
know, the audience doesn't know, so they had to go see it to see if Nicolas Cage does the Megan dance.
Yeah. Let's talk to 14% for Micah Monroe.
Mm.
Uh, that's big. I mean, 14%. And I think that's 14% of a lot of people who are horror fans. They know she's a scream queen, and that's great for her. I mean, this is a big win for her as well to get that
Yes.
name out there because she's been bopping around for a while. People really like her, but don't really know who she is. I think this is going to be the movie where it's like, I know who she is now.
Mhm. Well, and it's a great time for her to have this huge hit because she's gonna be the star of the It Follows sequel. I'm looking, and apparently that movie it was announced in October 2023, and it's got the same director from the first one, who I think he's had a bunch of bombs since then. He did the Under the Silver Lake, and he
I
was
think
the director within that, group of new horror directors, and he's had the toughest time since then.
the only movie I think he's directed is Under the Silver Lake.
Is that the only one he's directed since then? Because he broke
That's
with
all that I
Robert
know of.
Eggers. Eggers has had hits, and Ari Aster had his first. They all broke around the same time, and he hasn't had hits. But They Follow is, as I'm seeing in production, she's going to be the star, and that has a chance of being a huge movie coming off of
Mhm.
this. Because that's a
Well,
movie that's got a great reputation. It's IP. She now is a bigger star than, obviously, than she's ever been. And you get that thing out. I don't think it's supposed to come out this October, but you get that out next year. That's a possible horror event movie for her.
breakout sequel potential.
Yep.
So let's talk demos. Of course, Hispanic Latinos, 27%, and 54% of the audience, same day ticket buying,
Wow.
walk up business. Now, that's for all, not just Latino and Hispanic.
Right.
But when you see movies where they over index, a lot of time it's walk up business,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
amazing. 52% Caucasian, 10% Black, 7% Asian, and immense turnout by 18 to 34, 71%. Largely
Wow.
male, leaning at 57%. Biggest demo, 20 men over 25 at 38%.
Wow.
And
That
25
yeah.
to 34 was 37%. So, but I mean, the fact that this is driven by young people.
Wow. That is incredible. That 71% were between 18 and 34. And that is what movies need. And that shows that the movie theater experience is not going to go anywhere. Young people want that chance to be in the dark, to go out at night, to have something to do that's not just on their phones, not just in their basements. So it's not going anywhere. You got to give people and young people something special.
People.
People. And that is an amazing statistic, how young this audience was.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. That's why horror, all the talk of it is horror dead. Is horror dead? Great clickbait, but it's
Yeah,
dumb. It's
it's so dumb.
stupid. You
It's so
dumb.
dumb. Yeah.
Uh, young people love horror. It's the one thing that it's hard to replicate online. Sure,
Yes.
people can watch creepy pasta. They can do the maze thing where you have to turn your earphones up and then the woman screams at you. That's
Right.
not the
Right.
same as seeing a scary movie in the dark with your friends or with a date. And
Mm-hmm.
whatever happens
Whatever
in the
happens, happens.
dark,
Yeah.
your parents aren't there, your roommate's not there. I mean, that's the thing. I keep beating this drum. So many critics are people who are live by themselves or they have a wife and a kid and blah 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 blah, and they don't remember that young people need a place to go where their parents are. And young
Mhm.
people who are with roommates need to go a place where their roommates are, right?
Right.
Someplace that is dark. That is where the movie theater is. And there's no better movie experience for that sort of situation than a horror movie.
Yeah. And the audience being this young is great for Micah Monroe because you want a young fan base. Obviously it's nice when your movie's a hit no matter how it's a hit, but you could cultivate a young fan base. And that young fan base, again, they're going to follow her till they follow. She has a real chance now to, again, and it's always relative when we talk about becoming stars, but within this level, within this genre, she now has a chance to break out. Because
Mm-hmm.
if this, and we'll talk about in the weeks to come how big this movie could get. I mean, this could get really big. We've seen comparisons. It's not going to be Blair Witch Project, but there have been those comparisons because this is basically around the same time when Blair Witch opened in 1999, and it's a movie that was made very cheaply, that has made a ton of money in its opening weekend. So this Longlegs does have that shot, I think, to legitimately get to 80 to 100 million. I actually don't think this is going to be a flash in the pan, because it's like we said last week. If the opening weekend is big enough, it's going to create so much more attention for the second weekend. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's definitely what's happened here. The opening weekend is going to create awareness amongst people who had no idea what this movie was, but now they've got to see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Cinema Score is it a C? It's not a great cinema score, but horror movies tend to not have great cinema scores.
Yeah, because people have uncomfortable reactions to the movie,
Mm-hmm.
and,
Yeah,
and so
that's what they're reacting to. Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. So they'll come out of it feeling slimy or feeling scared, and they'll give it a low cinema score. But I don't think in real life that will preclude people from turning other people in their life on to seeing the movie. Because someone
Yes.
who
Yes.
gives a horror movie a C cinema score, D cinema score because they came out so scared, that's still good advertising for the people in their life to go see the movie, because they're going to say, "Oh no, I hate it. It was the scariest thing I've ever seen," and
Yeah.
that's a good advertising.
It is. It is. You can't get mad at a movie for doing what it's supposed to do, but people do anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But it's funny today. Had a conversation with somebody that said to me, "Have you seen Longlegs?" I said I hadn't
Wow.
seen it yet, and they said I don't like scary movies, but I want to see Longlegs.
Right.
That is
Right.
huge. That's how a movie breaks out, where you
Yeah.
get the people who don't normally see the scary movies because they have to see them. Now, I wouldn't put Nope as like a scary movie in the sense of like this movie, right? Because it's not a serial killer
Right. Right.
movie, whatever. But that's a kind of movie that breaks out because everybody says you have to see it.
Right.
There are horror elements to that. It's a more cerebral horror movie, but it has the feeling of a horror movie in the way that some people would avoid it.
Right.
But it's one of those movies that people had to go see. And it feels like Longlegs is along that line of bringing in the people that don't want to be scared, but they can't not be part of this cultural moment.
Yes. Yes. And that's
This shocking cultural moment that we experienced this weekend, which is, of course, the
yes.
opening weekend of Neon's Longlegs.
Yes, of course. That is a thing no one could stop talking about on Saturday and Sunday. I mean, I have tickets to see this movie tomorrow night with my
Mm-hmm.
wife, and she
Mm-hmm.
is not a horror person. She does not like to be scared, but
Nope.
she's had other friends, not even just me, because honestly, we'll go days without talking, and you got to keep a marriage going. But I'm not even the one who brought this up to her. She's had friends who have asked her about this movie Longlegs, and then she
Mm-hmm.
asked me about it, and then I'm like, all right, shut you up. Let's get tickets. And that's what we did.
Yep.
So we're going to see this
Mm-hmm.
tomorrow night, and it's going to be great. And it's going to be, romantic and scary and all that. And I think you're seeing that a lot, is people are being told about this because it is just the most talked about event of the weekend. So
Well, you know who's the real victim here this weekend?
who?
You know
Tell me
who
who?
really it was the having the worst week ever
Okay.
is a little lady named Maxine.
Oh wow, yeah,
This movie sucked the air out of Maxine's sails.
yeah,
Nobody is going to go see Maxine over Longlegs because
yeah.
there's just no cultural cachet to it. And
Hmm.
listen, I want to see Maxine. I like that trilogy. I love Pearl. Pearl is we've talked about this, my dream woman. If I
Hmm.
could marry any fictional character, it would be Pearl.
Yeah,
But
at any stage
at
of Pearl's life. Yeah,
any stage, listen, because it's not about the looks, huh? It's
no,
about what's inside. It's about what's in
right,
here,
right,
right?
right.
And she's got it. She's got the
Hmm.
goods, but she's just misunderstood. But Maxine is DOA because I just don't see any appeal to that movie when it comes to a horror movie. If you're gonna go, you're gonna go to Longlegs.
Yeah, it's the same audience, and Maxine. You know, the first two movies that trilogy, X, Pearl, they were the movies of that moment. Obviously, they came nowhere near Longlegs. They were super super small, but they were getting that type of cool factor audience,
Mm-hmm.
and that audience has is just completely forgotten about Maxine, and they're not coming back because it's only going to be more attention on Longlegs. And everything you heard about Maxine after that opening weekend was that it was the most disappointing of the three, the least essential, and didn't do anything new. You know, X was a fun slasher movie. Pearl was really bizarre way
Mm-hmm.
of continuing that. And then Maxine, even from people who liked it, never it just always seemed like this was a very obvious movie. There was nothing that unique about it. And so it
And
probably would
Pat,
have done better if there wasn't long legs, but I still don't think it would have done much better at this point. People didn't seem to care that much coming out of the first weekend.
no, and looking at the numbers, I mean, that's what we do. Number 8, Maxine made $2 million, dropped 69%.
Yeah.
Right. So again, I'm not, I'm not gonna make a coarse joke. I'm not gonna be that guy and say nice because that's not nice.
No.
Dropping 69% is not nice. Okay.
Right.
But it's fitting for Pearl. Obviously, she's a very sexually liberated woman, or
Mhm.
actually not as liberated as that was the problem, is she wasn't allowed to be as liberated as she wanted to be. But 69% drop is not good for that movie because
No.
it did open a little bit higher than we expected, but you don't want to see that sort of drop, you know?
Oh, no, it's
Uh,
terrible. For a movie that opens in single digits, a 69% drop is just terrible. It's a full-on rejection of the movie. Or if not
yeah,
rejection, a full-on just aggressive shrug of
yeah.
this movie. And I think it's gonna just shed theaters next weekend
Oh,
because that
yeah.
per screen average of $874, it basically is doing a couple of $100 more per screen than Sound of Hope: The Story of Possum Trot in the same number of
Man,
weekends. So
Longlegs needs to gobble up some of these screens. If these theaters are smart, add that to your marquee, add that to your screens. Let's
yeah,
get this popping. The other thing is, this movie made this money in 2,500 theaters and no IMAX.
no IMAX. This is just the lowest price tickets that
Yes,
you could get. Yeah,
it's amazing. It's amazing what this movie did. I mean, I think 22 to a lot of people, well, what's 22 when the number one movie made twice that? It's the size of the movie and it's the type of movie and it's who is promoting the movie that matters. This is a huge coup for Neon. This is putting them on the map. This is
yeah,
not making up for obviously giving Michael Mann $50 million to do Ferrari or whatnot. But this is, if they can do this sort of thing, and then they've got Cuckoo coming out later, and
Mm-hmm.
that's got some great buzz too. So Neon is a player now. This is
Yep.
amazing. We need these small companies to be players. I love
Yeah.
seeing Universal number one, then Neon, then Walt Disney, like to see those sandwiched together. It's
Mm-hmm.
variety. It's
Yeah.
competition. It's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. No,
Now,
this is great. And maybe it lights a fire under A24's took us because
took us.
Neon straight up embarrassed them this weekend. I mean, Maxine is A24. That's supposed to be their horror darling. And Neon took Maxine out to the woodshed this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
does that inspire A24 to get their house in order, to get their marketing in order, to come back strong with their next movie? Hopefully. That's what you want to see out of these studios, is that competition that is only going to be good for the theater owners. So I love it. I love Neon being in the game here. I love them doing it with a movie, not like Ferrari that's, attracting cater towards old film bros, but guys in their 50s and 60s. That they did it with a movie that was for young people, just
Mm-hmm.
like Five Nights at Freddy's. These are just like Megan. These are the movies that are going to succeed. Is you got to give people who are under the age of elderly what they want. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of talk right now. Are certain people too old, too old, too old? And I think, yeah, there's a lot of movies that come out that are catered towards people who are too old. And
Mm-hmm.
you got to get younger. It is what it is.
Got to go younger. So it's no, everybody in this country is hot right now. It's hot outside. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sweating.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just mention one more movie before we wrap this up, because I don't know if you can tell, I'm pouring sweat.
Wow. Okay.
The Lion King re-release. I had it
Mm.
in the top 5 because I was under the assumption they were actually going to put this out in a good number of theaters. Turns out it was 1,300 theaters. This thing made $1 million. It's down near the bottom of the top 10. If it even by Monday, well, it is Monday, top 10, it's in there barely. And so this did Jack S.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I went big for it with Lion King and I lost. But this is one of those things where made $1 million. Hopefully these theaters got a cut of didn't have to pay too much to run this thing. It was a big anniversary of this movie, which
Mm-hmm.
I thought would be a bigger deal, but I guess not. People were just preoccupied this weekend
And
with
it's tough.
Longlegs.
It's tough too with something like Lion King because it's so easy to watch Lion King, especially the last 5 years when it's just
Mhm.
sitting there on Disney Plus. And it's one of those movies that's on freeform, 3 times a day. So we've seen that success. Nightmare Before Christmas made a little bit of cash in the fall, and you could make some money with re-releases, but something like Lion King, the people who want to see it have seen it so many times and could see it
Mhm.
at any time. So unless there is really some kind of new content to it, uh, the re-releases are not going to be that big of a deal. So
Mhm.
we got a couple of emails I want to go through. We got
Oh, make them
some
fast. It's so hot. I'm so hot.
I didn't make them fast. I'm not your producer, your co-host. I'll
Come
make
on.
them as
What's
make them
next?
as fast or slow as I.
What's next?
Excuse me. This is
What's next?
you're not talking to Fafa Fuhi. Not talking to stuttering John over here.
All right, what's next? Bring me something good.
Where were you this weekend that we couldn't do the show on Sunday night?
Stop it. You know where I was.
I don't know. We couldn't do the show,
Mm.
and you
This
were
is
gone for
come
a few
on.
days. So
Hurry it up. Hurry it up a little bit. Read the email. Do you want me to read it?
Could you read it? Sitting there in a field of cows for the fourth week in a row. Let's see. Let's see if Clayton could read. Well, let's see if you remember the login to our email account. That's the first hurdle here. Because we've gotten that before
You
where there's something
know,
you can't do because you don't have the password, and
I didn't have
you're stuck.
access.
Yeah, then you don't have access.
Well, I'm loading it up right now because I didn't have it pulled up because I didn't expect to dip into the mailbag right now. So,
Right.
yeah. So, which
Well,
okay,
everything's unexpected for you because
which
you
one of
don't
these is
plan
so
anything for the
important?
show. So
Which one of these is so important that's
so
keeping me from taking my
right now, then you
uh
are insulting our listeners. What is so important? The listeners, whatever they say, should be treated as important by us.
Wait, do you
Because they took the
do you,
time out. They took the time out to write us at the boboyspodcast at gmail.com. And already you're starting off on the foot of why do we have to bother with
no,
these
what are you talking about? All I said,
bumpkins?
I was not saying that in a
Make it
judgmental
quick.
way.
Make
I
it
was saying,
quick.
no, I
I'll
was
give them
telling
the time
you,
that they deserve.
Pat, I was telling you to speed up the intro to getting to the mail to then read the mail so that I could get into these insightful commentaries before my whole entire ass sweats out. And now you turn it into this whole thing where now I have to read it. And then I was saying, with all sincerity, looking at the emails, which one is so important that I'd be willing to sweat for it. But you didn't let me finish because you wanted to cast aspersions, which you've been doing all episode about my whereabouts this weekend, how I feel about the listeners, all these things that you're creating. And now you see you're extending. I can't believe I'm buying into this by extending this. I'm going to read one of BO Boy Zach's email. Are you comfortable with this?
You know, we could have been done with all of these emails, and
Uh,
your ass puddle could have been, I don't know where you're going to stick it, on a bucket of ice. That could have happened already had I just, when I said, let's read some emails, if you would have said, oh, great, we would have been probably 3 emails
no,
deep right now.
it never would have
But
happened. This was
you had to
inevitable.
do your whole thing. You had to do
No,
whatever the hell that outburst was.
you had to do your whole thing. This was inevitable. This was inevitable. There was no way that this was going to go smoothly and fast. There was no
Well,
way.
no, I
There's
agree
no way in
because
hell.
of you. Yes, you are correct. It was never going to go smoothly because, God forbid, you had just said, "Oh, yeah, let's read some emails."
Zach says, with the recent announcement of Shrek 5, 2026 is shaping up to be a massive year at the box office. Super Mario 2, Avengers 5, Shrek, Toy Story 5, live action Moana, The Batman 2, Dune 3 reportedly, and another Star Wars movie are already slated to open, with more obviously to come as the year gets closer. My question to you guys was, what do you think will be the highest grossing movie of that year, and how will those 8 tentpoles I listed match up with each other? Personally, I'm very high on Shrek and think that it'll take the crown unless Marvel can figure out things before the next Avengers. Thank you, as always, want to be oh boy, Zach. Well, thank you, Zach. I don't know how you feel about this, Pat, but I think we're sort of all in agreement here about Shrek. Shrek
Yeah,
being bigger. I think Shrek will be bigger than Avengers 5.
I mean, I think Avengers 5 could be third. I think Super Mario 2 could be bigger than Avengers 5.
And I think Toy Story 5 is right there too. I don't think
Yeah,
Batman 2, Dune 3, those
no.
are sort of going to be at a different level. I think Moana, live action Moana, I think is probably going to not do super well comparatively. I feel like that's going to be more of a Little Mermaid situation. I think the top is Shrek. I think under that is Super Mario 2, then Toy Story 5, and then yeah, Avengers 5 could do worse than Moana live
Yeah, and
action.
if it's not an Avengers that brings back Tony, it brings back Downey, brings back, I mean, Chris Evans, I guess, still means something in that world, even though he's becoming such a joke. right
Mhm.
now. But I think if he comes back as Captain America, it means something. But yeah, Avengers, God, I mean, 5 years ago, could you imagine saying an Avengers movie wouldn't be the top movie of its year? Now it could conceivably be third or fourth the year it comes
Mhm.
out. So
Yeah.
the other email I wanted to get to was a brand new one we just got from Wannabe Oh Boy Reed. Says, poor rats. I saw Maxine over the weekend. A grandmother was in front of me taking four rats to see a movie. It was not a movie you might expect. No Gru, no joy. Literally, this grandmother took her rats between ages 4 and 12 to see Sound of Hope. I felt sorry for the rats as the theater was full of happy rats seeing other happy movies. These kids look like they got tricked into seeing a movie with grandma. Loved the show. Read. And then P.S. After seeing Maxine, I'm not surprised it's not a hit. Much like Fall Guy, average moviegoers not interested in behind the scenes movie making. These types of movies are more popular for serious moviegoers, or as I call them, BO boys, girls, people.
People.
So great email, Read. At least I think so. I was happy to read that in its entirety. So unlike other people, but I'm
I
glad you
read
sent
mine was
that.
longer. My email was longer.
So, well, congratulations. You knew all the words there. So good for you, Clayton. But getting tricked into seeing Sound of Hope, that is pretty rough. And maybe that is a movie for that studio to consider. You know, they did the Sound of Freedom, where every ticket was representing a kid who was kidnapped into slavery or whatever. And then Sound of Hope, what was it? Every ticket was a foster kid, right? I think every ticket represented a foster kid.
Well, no, that wasn't the case. That was something that we said should have been the case.
Right. So maybe you do a movie um where it's about kids who get tricked into seeing movies they don't want to see with their grandparents.
Mhm.
And every ticket to that movie represents a kid who is being forced against their will to see a movie they don't want to see.
Mhm.
So,
But it's
you
but
know,
it's not a movie that the kids would it's one of those things where it's not like that movie that you're buying a ticket for is like a good kids movie.
no,
It's
even that is a movie kids would not want to see.
yeah. But it's a movie for the kids that kids don't wanna see.
Yes, it's in memory of them, but they also
Uh-huh.
would not want to see it, even though it's
Yeah.
based on them. Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
I mean, Angel
and
Studios could create that sort of, mystery box of an idea. I mean, that's anything for a scam, these guys
hmm
over there.
hmm
They need another
and
scam bad because what they're doing right now is not working.
yeah, just trying to title their movies Sound of, that is not going to work. The
Mhm.
Sound of is not IP and it's not a scam. So, we're always pulling for Angel Studios to figure it out, but
Mhm.
they really haven't been able to come up with a great follow-up scam to Sound of Freedom. And yeah, Reed's take on Maxine is interesting. The behind the scenes of Hollywood stuff, it doesn't usually hit in a big way.
Mhm.
And that is kind of the charm of Pearl, is it wasn't that. And then when they go into that with Maxine, it really does limit the audience to people who are particularly interested in seeing the Psycho House be an Easter egg in a movie.
Mhm.
There's people who want that, but it's not Joe Lunchpail.
Yeah, I mean, Longlegs is about investigators, police investigators, you know? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that is something that people like to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. And, we didn't really get into it, but that is probably a reason why, serial killer stuff and serial killer investigation is obviously a huge genre on streaming. I think, genre is big with everyone, but it's particularly a female interest genre. And that probably did help this weekend and helps the next couple of weeks on widening the audience. That is
Mhm.
it's just a topic that people are interested in. So yeah. All right. So I guess that'll be it for the emails this weekend. Email us, theboboyspodcast@gmail.com. I love reading your emails. I love getting your emails. So email us, and I will be very happy that you've emailed us, the BO Boys Podcast at
I love
gmail.com.
I love receiving them. I love when they're read quickly and efficiently. That's what I love. That's what I
Mm-hmm.
love.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Yep.
You know what? You should hire someone then to read your emails quickly and efficiently. You should definitely
Listen,
do
I mean,
that.
no, I mean, you did a great job with that last one. If we could have just gotten to it faster, it would have been
It would have been
perfect.
great. I agree. It would have been great if there wasn't an asshole slowing the show up by throwing little hissy fits and
Wow.
pretending that his betters were his staff members. So if we
You
didn't
really
have
shouldn't
that, it
talk
would have
about
been
yourself that way, Pat, because
yeah.
you should look at you the
Did
way
you
I
just
look at you,
do?
which is
Did
as a
you just
friend.
do do a Pee Wee Herman comeback there? I know you are. I know you are, but what am I? Did you just do that
No, I
basically?
said, listen, you should always treat yourself the way you would treat a friend. And that's
Mhm.
why I want you to treat yourself better. It's
Mhm.
how I would treat you because
Okay.
you are my friend.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. But we do
All
really got to
right.
go. We really, really got to go.
Because you're sweating there.
I'm sweating. Yeah, I'm
Oh,
sweating.
okay. Got it.
Do you
All
just want me
right.
to sweat on YouTube? People don't, they don't like and subscribe to sweaty people unless it's
No,
a
I think that's
workout
a big. I
situation.
think that's a big thing. The YouTube sweaty ass crack challenge.
Hmm.
Let's see how
Well,
sweaty we could get you.
guess who's winning? Guess who's winning?
All right. So
Hashtag winning.
email us.
Hashtag download.
Watch us on YouTube. Subscribe to the BO Boys YouTube channel. Um, of course, follow us on social media at the BO Boys Pod on Twitter X and on TikTok. Wanna BO senior intern Christopher, just doing a great job. What a great guy he is. Great part of the show, and very excited to have him on. He was great on the last episode. Wouldn't you agree? Christopher was
Yeah, this
outstanding
part we could really
on
go
the last
faster on.
episode.
Yeah.
So can't wait to have Christopher back on again. I'm
Mhm.
counting the minutes until he's back on the show. So follow us
Do you want to
there.
count some minutes right now?
What was
Do you want to
that?
count some minutes? Do you want to count some minutes right now?
Sure, let's count some minutes.
Okay. It's being sarcastic. It's a
So
joke.
5 stars in Apple Podcasts. Of course, tickets now are on sale for all 3 of our live shows. So LA, New York. So LA on October 8th, New York on October 22nd, Boston on November 16th with Kirk Minihan. Tickets are on sale. There are VIP tickets and there are regular tickets. So there's a limited amount of VIP tickets for the Boston show that gets you guaranteed front row seats. So links in the show notes. Start buying those tickets today. Boston with Kirk Minihan. And I think that's it, Clayton. I think we've done it.
You said it all, Pat.
Yeah,
There's nothing left to be said
nothing.
except for until next time.
Will
We'll
smell
smell
you
you
at
at
the box
box
office.
office.
Nailed it.
Nailed it.